Sadhguru, talking about spirituality, and like I questioned that, how practical is it in today's world, whereas like the whole philosophy of spirituality or what?
No, spirituality is not a philosophy.
I know it's a technique, it's a practice which
No,
I also do.
no.
It's yoga.
No.
It's yoga. It's the ultimate union. Okay, so I know yoga is the ultimate union, and everything that we do as yoga is supposed to make us inclusive. Inclusive of everything. So let me finish, okay? So it is supposed to make us inclusive of our environment, and then further expanding that our country, our countrymen, and then the planet, and then the cosmos, and that it goes on. But my question is, and I want to present an example. I was in London, and you know what happens to when you are in a beautiful city with great infrastructure, you're with a couple of friends, and your Indian friends, they're always cursing India. You know, oh, this is so great, where we live is a piece of garbage. You know, and on all that, I felt so overwhelmed. I couldn't wait to get to my room, and when I got there, I was crying. I found myself crying, and I was muttering something of the effect that you know, I mean, what do you expect, and you know, why don't they have sympathy for their own land and all of that? And then I realized that identifying like that with your country, today I'm crying, tomorrow I might just punch somebody, and everybody will behave in their own way. So this kind of identification with your environment, with your country, with your religion, with your family is the root cause of all atrocities. So isn't that kind of, isn't it dangerous? Now don't tell me be inclusive, but still not be inclusive.
Don't try to answer for
no.
me.
I am not buying that answer. How can you be inclusive and yet not be inclusive? If you're inclusive, you're inclusive. Or you don't be inclusive.
Well, the city that you're appreciating of its infrastructure and its wealth and well-being, for 2 centuries was largely built on stolen money from this country. Well, we should not resent our history and develop animosity towards somebody. But at the same time, it's stupid to forget everything and go on as if nothing happened. That'll be absolutely stupid. That's a problem with us. One thing is, see, in this country, what has happened in those 200 years? Don't go back 1,000 years, there have been atrocities, that's a different matter. Even if you go back this 200 years, because we're talking about London, what's happened in this country is not a small thing. 6 million Jews died. They write and write and write about it, they make movies about it. Nobody is supposed to forget about it in the world, everybody is reminded every day how this atrocity happened to them. But you know, the Bengal famine killed over 3.5 million people in a matter of 3 months because they took away all the food for the World War II effort. And this is not one. The governor in 1860 writes, "The fields of India are bleached by the bones of the hand weavers because they destroyed the handloom industry." Yesterday was handloom day or something, yes? From 1800 to 1860, in 60 years' time, an industry which has lasted for 10,000 years, they destroyed and left millions of people to die. It's recorded in British history, and you know, in what they have written, not what we have written, because we write nothing. If we get our breakfast tomorrow, we're just happy. There's a big problem in India because we don't have a sense of history.
History or revenge?
No, revenge is not needed because revenge will again waste your energy and you know, your future is wasted if you go into revenge.
Sadhguru, this is what I don't get.
Now, let me finish this. About what is this spiritual process given to us, okay? The question is, why can't we be like them and be successful? See, why we are like this is because we have realized in a very profound way. Most Indian people may not know this consciously, but they know this by life. They may not be articulating this in their mind. Somewhere they know that their well-being is essentially coming from within. Outside arrangements we can make as we want, but me being joyful, peaceful, loving, blissful is most important. Well, that's why I said individually we did great, organization also we had great stuff, till outside people came who had no concern about anything that you think and feel and experience, everything was brutally uprooted, all right? I'll just tell you an example. For example, you've come to the yoga center, that region, there's one police station with about 12 to 14 policemen. About 4 are on night duty, that means about 8 or 9. 2, 3 will be always on leave. I'm saying literally there's no law, it's 250,000 people. There's literally no law at all. But still there's no crime. This is spiritual process, I'm telling you. You take away police in New York City, you take away the law enforcement in New York City or London that you're talking about, just see what will happen in 3 hours' time.
Okay, so Sadhguru, this…
We need organization right now. To succeed as a nation, we need organization.
Yeah, but the way society has also been handling things is not great. It's not really the best thing. It's not the… we can't rely on a system like that. You mean like we are largely being organized by society, but that's not the most appropriate way. I mean, authority isn't either, but aren't there is at least a set of rules there. With society, they're really… I mean, more money you've got, you can literally get away with anything. So that's not the best way to go forward. What do you have to say about that?
Here? You're saying in India?
In India, yes.
Yeah. See, we need to understand this. When the British left this country, the average life expectancy in this country was 28 years, okay? The illiteracy was 93%. There was literally no industry, no infrastructure of any kind. People, some idiots talk about, oh, they built railways. They built railways because they want to move their troops and the goods out of the country. So railways were there, but what were they transporting on the railways? So there was literally no economic infrastructure. Administrative infrastructure in the form of civil services was there, that was to keep control. You just see what they were called. What were the local administrators called? They were called collectors. Even today, unfortunately, we're retaining the same appellation. Collector means what? They were just tax collectors. In many provinces, the taxes on the agricultural produce was 100%. Can you beat that?
Oh.
100% tax on everything that you grow. So this was a totally, absolutely demoralizing occupation that happened for over 200 years. And we are recovering from that. It's not a small thing.
I agree.
We've been just beaten down, no education, no nourishment, no economic infrastructure, all industry destroyed, we were just a resource for their industry. When this was done systematically, we've been exploited. Only problem with us was we didn't have an organization to fight them. We had small kingdoms which they played very well and they managed. This is a historical blunder on our side, there's no point cursing them. They did what was best for them, we could not do what was best for us. It's time for us to do what is best for us now.
But Sadhguru, tell me, like we have such a diversity in our country, you know, whether there are different languages, traditions, religions and food and all sort of diversity.
Definitely food.
Which is beautiful, like what you say about difference and discrimination. Differences are beautiful, you know, like how like a man is different than a woman and flowers are different and you know, so on and so forth. So there is difference which is beautiful, but don't you think there should be one spirit? There should be something that could bind us together. I don't see anything because the only common factor between us is definitely the motherland, because you're from south and I'm from north, and if we didn't have the history of slavery to connect us, we would never know what we are talking about.
We are very balanced because we are from the sea level.
Yeah, his nickname for me is mental. He calls me cuckoo. Yeah, so So Sadhguru, don't you think we should have something that can bind us together? Don't you think it's so easy to play us as people, as a nation, and that spirit of, like, I can think of only one thing that can bind us together is probably nationalism, which is the most infamous word in today's time. So what is it? What can bind us together?
See, this diversity that you're talking about, as all of us know, there is no other nation which has this complexity of diversity. We have 1,300 spoken languages in this country and 1,000 different ways to cook and 1,000 different ways to dress, and every 50 kilometers you drive, people look different, dress different, speak different, eat different, everything different. So, this is what also helped us to survive. You must understand this. See, just look at this. Wherever the English went, for example, or before that, the Islamic invasions, wherever they went, they made sure the entire population was religiously at least compromised. Just look at North America, South America, Africa, Australia, wherever they went, they were absolutely nearly 100% successful. This is one country they couldn't figure out because they don't know where the head is.
So…
Because we are like we're an organism with, million heads, nobody knows which head to cut. So don't complain about this because this has also been our survival. After nearly 1,000 years of occupation, we've still retained our culture, maybe little bit of distortions here, there, but we've still retained it simply because nobody knows where the head is, otherwise they would have chopped off the head.
So where's the head?
Huh? No, that is the whole thing. You tell me, this whole thing now is leading to something else. Right now there's a huge cosmos. In this, we are a tiny little planet, yes?
Yeah.
Now, the foolish way of looking at life is that there is a head for this cosmos, there is one God sitting up there and ruling this cosmos. This is a childish way of looking at life. But that's not the way we looked at it here. We saw every organism, every life, every atom has its own head and it's running by itself. It is complete by itself, it runs by itself. This is why in this culture, self-realization became most important, because if you realize the nature of this, in a way you have realized the nature of the entire cosmos, because this idea that there is some central point in the cosmos and there is one head sitting up there is a stupid idea. Modern science is proving that to you beyond any doubt, but we have said this for thousands of years because we saw this is a headless cosmos. Headless is not a negative thing. I know the Western saying headless chicken is supposed to be bad. Yes, a chicken should have a head. It should also have two legs. It's important. But this is a headless cosmos, that is why it's so beautiful. So we are just an imitation of the cosmic nature of existence. We are also always headless. But this is why individual genius becomes of paramount importance, because each human being functioning at their peak is important to create a society which is as colorful and as diverse as possible. So what held us together? See, because you must understand this, there was a time when there were over 200 political entities in the form of kingdoms and empires and whatever. Many times people try to, unite them into one occupation, but later on it again broke up. Many times over 200 political establishments. In spite of that, in this nation people felt this is one nation, we call this Bharat, and people from outside, they also thought this is one nation, though there were 200 kings ruling the place. What is it? What do you think made them think this is one nation? Even today, if you go to Syria, Lebanon, you will see thousands of women especially named as Hind. They're named as India. Their understanding is Hind means India, and they have taken the name Hind. Even today, thousands of women have this name that they are Hind. So, because forever we've been known as one nation, for more than 10,000–15,000 years.
That's so good.
This is because everywhere they went, they saw a nation was always built on the sameness of language, sameness of religion, sameness of ethnicity. But they found this land, there is no sameness anywhere If you look from your neighbor to you, you are a different person, absolutely. You cook differently, they cook differently, you speak one language, they speak another language. But they called this one nation because this was the only nation which was a land of seekers, not a land of believers. This is why we have always identified as seekers. We are seekers of truth and liberation. Our highest value is not God. God means head. Our highest value has never been God. Our highest value has always been mukti and moksha because this means liberation and freedom. Freedom has been our highest value. Now the so-called liberals are talking about freedom fresh as if they're talking about it for the first time. We've always held as the most sacred thing in our life is ultimate liberation of the human being. Not going to heaven, not the pleasures of heaven have never been eulogized in this culture. So our togetherness came because we were seekers. When we were seekers, the important thing about seeking is this: when you are believers, you will always get together. Because without getting together… See, if you just believe something all by yourself, you look stupid. You need 1,000 people around you who believe the same thing, otherwise you'll feel foolish. But when you become a seeker, you always want to be alone, because seeking is internal and individual. So because we were always individuals, we were never an organized group, we never had a situation where somebody could give us one rip-rap speech and get us all moving. There's never been like that. Still we are like that, I'm glad we are like that, but we need some organization to function in the modern world for sure.
No, that's